I think the work of Palestinian students on US university campuses has been critical to spreading the message of both Palestinian solidarity and raising awareness of the occupation that is happening in Palestine. I think for the past few decades, the right wing in the United States has done a very, very good job of limiting discourse on the occupation of Palestine by Israel, in the way that limiting that discourse means that the vast majority of the American public is very, very ill-informed on the occupation. For example, they likely couldn't name a city in Palestine. It's that pervasive and that limited.
Solidarity with Palestine at Yale University in New York is a dynamic and multifaceted movement driven by students, faculty, and various campus organizations. It encompasses a range of initiatives and activities aimed at raising awareness about the Palestinian struggle for justice and advocating for Palestinian rights. For more on that, I have with me at the studio from Yale University his student Tia Shatila. Tia also working as a journalist for the magazine of The Nation. You are welcome, Tia.
Thank you, Osama, for having me.
You're welcome. Tia, student-led organizations in the universities play a very significant role in promoting solidarity in the United States of America with the cause of the Palestinian people. If you tell me about the situation of the solidarity movement within the campus of your university.
Of course. The history of solidarity and activism on university campuses in the United States is very long, going back to the anti-apartheid movement in South Africa in the middle 20th century, and then continuing today for the solidarity movement for those living under apartheid and occupation in Palestine. So on Yale University's campus, much like other universities across the US, Yale is not unique in any way in this facet. We have an organization called Yaleys for Palestine, which seeks to raise awareness for the Israeli occupation of the Palestinian territories, in addition to raising money and using the resources of Yale University to establish a boycott, divest, and sanction campaign against the state of Israel, and especially the way that Yale University, with an almost $45 billion endowment, uses its money to fund the state of Israel and to continue the occupation.
Yes. Tia, you know that such activities in support of the Palestinian people's right to freedom, justice, and independence, ending the Israeli occupation of the Palestinian land, face also resistance within the United States because of the Zionist lobby. And we all heard the speech by the Yemeni student and how she was attacked and lambasted by different organizations and different officials and individuals in the United States. So tell me about how the solidarity activists face such campaigns like the campaign started against the Yemeni student.
Yes, what happened at the City University of New York at the law school speech is not unique. It happens at universities across the US as there's very prominent free speech discourse where those on the right proclaim that Palestinian students, those seeking to build a solidarity movement with Palestine, are either A, infringing on the free speech rights or spreading hate speech against Jewish students on university campuses, and then seek to limit that discourse and speech, or organizations at those universities. There are many examples of far-right organizations in the US, just like here in the occupation of Palestine, that seek to limit that discourse. So at Yale, for example, is the only Ivy League university that has not had a boycott, divest, sanction campaign until very recently because of the pushback from both administration and far-right organizations that have gone actually published articles attacking Yale students for proclaiming their solidarity with Palestine. So what happened there has also happened at Yale and public and private universities across the US.
Yes. Here we are talking about students' solidarity with the people of Palestine within the campuses of the universities.
Yes.
Can we talk about the impact of the students' activism on the American public? I mean, their relationship with grassroots, with different organizations, different individuals who are involved in politics and interested in the Palestinian struggle for justice. If you tell me about how this relationship is existent between the students inside the campus and organizations outside the campus?
Yes, I think the work of Palestinian students on US university campuses has been critical to spreading the message of both Palestinian solidarity and raising awareness of the occupation that is happening in Palestine. I think for the past few decades, the right wing in the United States has done a very, very good job of limiting discourse on the occupation of Palestine by Israel, in the way that limiting that discourse means that the vast majority of the American public is very, very ill-informed on the occupation. For example, they likely couldn't name a city in Palestine. It's that pervasive and that limited. But I think the movement of solidarity on US university campuses has been very important in raising awareness and making the news, honestly, just like the student at the City University of New York did. Even if she received backlash, that press, especially the positive press, was very important for raising awareness and having Americans realize that they are both complicit in the occupation of Palestine, especially in the way that the United States continues to fund the occupation.
Yes, and do you agree with me that there is a clear difference now in the public attitude when it comes to Israel-Palestine? Because in the past, it was not possible for any to talk about the Palestinians' rights in the United States, as the Zionist narrative was the prevalent, the dominant one. The IPAC has full control over the public space in the United States when it comes to public opinion and political views. But now it's different due to the activities and the efforts of the young generation, your generation. Mm-hmm. So do you agree with this statement that the young generation in the United States, the young generation attitude is different compared to that of the old generation?
I certainly think so, and I think it's been a change for the better. I think there are a couple of things that have contributed to that change. I think Palestinians who live in the United States using their voices and whatever time and energy they have to inform other students about the occupation here has been really important in changing young people's perspectives. And then I think young people and the millennial and Gen Z generation in the United States are some of the most politically active that we've seen in recent history. And I think those students and those young adults noticing that this occupation is one of the biggest human rights issues of our time, and then dedicating more and more time and energy and effort to building solidarity with Palestinian organizers against the occupation has been really important in building that movement and raising awareness for the occupation.
Yeah. We know that the young generation are the leaders of the future, of course, and the United States administration for sure is going to be run by the young generation that we have today. So do you think that this kind of activism and this kind of support by a large number of students and activists in the United States for the right of the Palestinian people, do you think that will have an impact not only on the public opinion but also in the American foreign policy if we talk about long-term impact?
I think American foreign policy is a difficult arena to change, right? I think for the past few decades, American foreign policy has been fairly stable in its approach to Palestine, which has been supporting the Israeli occupation. But I think there is room for change, and change has been happening. Max Frost, who is now the youngest U.S. representative in the United States, was formerly involved with the Democratic Socialists of America, who's been very, very critical in building a complete solidarity movement with Palestine. And he's now in the US House of Representatives. Although he is alone among his generation there, but I think it does signal that there is room and potential for change in the future.
Yes. And Tia, you are coming from the United States to Palestine in order to have first-hand experience of the Palestinian situation, the Palestinian life, the Palestinian culture, and at the same time, the Palestinian suffering under the Israeli colonial settler regime. So such kind of activities, how it fits into global citizenship?
I think something I realized visiting Palestine is that even reading news reports, even reading firsthand accounts, it does not compare and it does not do justice to the true amount of suffering that is happening as a result of the occupation. There are things like going through Israeli checkpoints or having guns pointed at me, even though I'm a white American citizen, that I wouldn't have experienced if I didn't come to Palestine. And honestly, it was a shocking experience. It made me quite angry, it made me sad, it made me frustrated, and it drove me to take action. And I think it reaffirmed my commitment to writing and hoping to uplift the voices and stories of Palestinians who have been fighting this fight for decades and decades against the occupation. But again, if I hadn't come here, I don't think I would have ever fully realized that, which I think is how it contributes to this idea of global citizenship, that having a degree of empathy, listening to Palestinian voices and their experiences is incredibly important in building that solidarity, because solidarity without empathy, without having a shared experience, is very difficult to build.
Yes, and Tia, you visited different Palestinian villages, refugee camps and cities, and you watched the colonial landscape because of the Israeli measures and colonial infrastructure in terms of the checkpoints, the apartheid wall, the Israeli settlements. And what is more dangerous today is the pastoral colonial settlements.
Exactly.
Especially in Masafer Yatta, the area that you visited just 2 days ago. If you tell me, how did you feel that kind of settlement, and at the same time about the days that you spent with the Palestinians living in that area?
Yes, I think the first thing I noticed in Masafer Yatta, so I visited 2 villages on the outskirts of the 2 cities, so Susia and Twani. And in those 2 villages, not only speaking with the villagers about the demolition orders that have been placed on their homes because of firing order 918 by the Israeli government. So at any time, the Israeli soldiers could come and just destroy their homes. But to speak to your point of pastoral colonialism, moving outside of the villages to see the shepherds who have been grazing their sheep on the lands for hundreds and hundreds of years, but then seeing the Israeli settlements that are on top of all of the hills and who often come and steal the resources of the land, who build their tents, their houses, and when it's time for the sheep to go and graze, either come and burn the grass off of the hills and make it impossible for the shepherds to survive. It's just one of the many ways that Israeli settlers continue to replicate settler colonialism and to push shepherds who have, again, been on the lands for hundreds of years away from their homes.
Yes. Tia, you are going to visit the Palestinian city of Jenin and the Palestinian refugee camp of Jenin.
I am.
And I'm sure that you are going to love the people there because of their hospitality and their love for peace. While the Israeli narrative is fully different to what I say. They say that it is a hub for terrorists. They accuse the Palestinians there of terrorism. Now, when you meet with your friends back at home in the United States, journalists and the students, until you visited Jenin, are the people terrorists there? You going to say no?
Of course.
How are you going to convince them that the Palestinians there are peace-loving people, not, as Israeli claims, terrorists? And we saw how it carried out its incursion yesterday, killed 15-year-old boy and other 5 Palestinians, injured over 100. So how are you going to portray the situation of Jenin to your people?
Of course. I think the only way that Israel can continue to justify its occupation is by controlling the narrative, by painting Palestinians as terrorists, by saying that they want to kill all Jewish people in these lands, which just is not true. I've traveled all over the world, visited many different countries, and I can truly say that the most hospitality, the most kindness I've ever encountered has been here in Palestine. It truly feels like home. I'm going to be so sad when I have to leave. And I know that when I go and visit Jenin, I'm going to encounter that same hospitality, that same kindness, and the Israeli narrative that Palestinians are dangerous is just not true. And I can tell my friends, students, journalists, that that's not true because I've seen it with my own eyes, that I have pictures of us together, of them giving me hugs, of food, of drink, that I've shared with the people of various cities and villages all across Palestine, and that I have that firsthand experience that proves that Israel's narrative just is not true.
Yeah, and my final question to you, Tia, if you are given another opportunity to visit Palestine, are you going to make it again, and why?
Of course, I really hope that I have another opportunity to visit. And as soon as I leave, I know I'm probably going to start planning it. I think having another opportunity to visit Palestine and all the friends that I've made here will be very important. And I hope to bring other students and journalists with me, because now I have that experience. There was definitely a steep learning curve. I had to learn a lot being a foreigner. But I hope coming back, I can not only continue to learn more myself, but teach my other friends and journalists what the situation is really like here.
Tia Shatila, American student at Yale University and at the same time a journalist working for the magazine of The Nation. It has been a great pleasure having you in Palestine TV studio.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching. And from me, Osama Nazal, have a nice time.